The future of work. HR strategies for a remote and digital world.
So this is the last talk of the day. I know many of you are low energy, but you're going to realize that this panel is very high energy indeed. And that's one of the ways they actually make HR work. By being optimistic, actually bringing good vibes and good energy to the decision-making table and to the environments that they work in as well. And I'm hoping that we can share some of that energy with you. And also have a bit of a more informal, might I say, conversation as well about HR and what business practices we can put in place to empower and inspire the people we work with on a day-to-day basis. So I'd love to introduce the panel one by one, even if we can just go and just introduce ourselves and where we work. Ju, feel free to go ahead and shoot in an introduction, and then we can go ahead with the discussion.
Super, thank you. Thanks a lot, John. I'm Julian. I'm the CEO and director of Finductive. We're a digital bank, pretty much. And when it comes to HR, we've got 30 staff, and I don't like any of them, but I have to deal with it, so that's me.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Cordelia. I own my own boutique HR and recruitment consultancy called CM Consulting, and I focus on engagement, satisfaction, and real happiness at work. It's something I'm super passionate about, and it's something that I work very closely with my clients on. Thank you.
Oh my God, we are colleagues, you know. I have my recruitment agency in Serbia, and I'm so happy to see you again and again. Okay, hello everyone. I have recruitment agency in Serbia, and we work with cryptocurrency, we work with affiliate, with iGaming. It's our industry.
Awesome, and for everyone in the crowd, I'm seeing like some of you are tired, some of you are aware. How many of you actually have your own employees and have to go through your own AHR process? Can you just raise your hand if that's the case? One person only. I see you. So the rest of you, are you employees in that regard? Can you raise your hand instead if you're employed rather than being an employer? Okay, I see two over there. So you two at the front, for example, are you not part of any, are you employers, are you employed, are you just relaxing in that regard? So, understood. Okay, that justifies the lack of a hand. And one more important question. Have any of you heard of this thing called ChatGPT by any chance? Is it something could you raise your hand if that's the case? Have you heard of ChatGPT before? Shame on the people that didn't raise their hands. If you haven't, it's something you should definitely tap into. The reason why I bring this up is because I would love to talk about data. I think it's an interesting place to start. How is data impacting HR? How is it going to change best practices and influence our decision making? And Julian, I'm going to start with you in that regard. A data-oriented approach, is it ethical to start harvesting data and using that to take HR-related decisions?
I really think it's ethical. Let's take ethical out of it for a second. It's whether or not it allows you to run the HR side in a much better way. If you have that data, you're going to run it in a much better way. You know, it's going to be beneficial for the actual employees themselves by getting the data and using the data that they've got. So ethical, maybe not, but is it going to improve your HR side? Absolutely.
Cordelia, what do you think?
I think it's really essential nowadays. I mean, most of the companies that I partner with, they're going through an evolution within their HR team. So they've been working as a small startup, maybe 5-10 employees, where things are more done on feelings basis. You think something feels right, so you go and do it. But when you start to professionalize the HR function, you're suddenly 50 people, 100 people. To be able to create a fair playing ground, you absolutely have to have HR systems in place, and you have to be able to then say, this is the policy and this is the plan we're going through. It's kind of the unsexy part about HR, having to write policies and procedures, but it's something that's really, really essential. And I think for businesses that are looking to professionalize, you absolutely have to become data-led.
Elena?
I truly believe it's our future, you know, because I work with developers, and of course people worried about their job. It's all the time happened, you know, and people think, oh my God, it will be, big mess and we lose our job. But designers work with intelligence, intellect, everyone start to work. My company also, every girl in my team, they have, thank you, they have avatar from, from E, and it's amazing, really. I truly believe it's a future.
That's it. And for those of you in the crowd that are employees, how do you feel about having data being harvested by your employers for them to potentially make a decision? Do you feel negatively about that, positively, no feelings? Like, raise your hand if that's something that scares you or worries you. Kind of. I see one hand. I see other people shaking their heads. And this is, Cordelia, I'd like to put that question to you first. An important part of prudent HR is empathy and being able to empathize with your people and being able to understand where they're coming from and putting yourself in their shoes. Do you worry that taking a data-oriented approach might dull your effectivity in taking that process?
You know what, I think it's a really good question, but I really believe that if you have the right people in the HR function, they are empathetic by nature. So irrespective of whether you become much more data-driven, you will still have that kind of feelings-based discussions. It's super important that teams understand that they can go to HR departments to be able to discuss difficult situations and to be able to really have that feeling that they're there to support them. I think the moment that starts to go, that's when HR as a function, it breaks down, and then it can become very difficult to get it back on track.
That's a very good reply, and something I'd like to ask you, Julian, is more relation to the interpretation of data as well. Quickly, how can we make sure that from the HR process we're interpreting that data correctly as opposed to potentially falling to biases that can stop us from that?
Look, we as a company, what we did, one, we went from what you were saying just now, from a very small company. We were 4 years old, and we started with 4 people, and now we've grown to that 40. 30. What we've done now is we've actually brought in somebody to focus on the HR. Now, one of the tools that we were using is DISC, D-I-S-C, which really, when the staff do it, they just get asked questions, and I think, but it gives you an understanding of where they sort of sit on their emotion as well. And that data has really, really helped, because you have your own emotions and you will go and have your own personality and bring that personality to there. And that person might not be responsive to that type of personality. But from a leader's point of view, if you actually understand their personality, you can go in with a completely different tact and get the best out of it. And that's purely from data.
And what's the name of the tool? Because I know there were 4 hands that said they were actually in HR and have their own employees. Just so
it's DISC. I've got it on my phone. So if you want to come and see me afterwards, just down here, I'll get it and I'll get the data from it.
It's worth chatting to him. I highly recommend that. And Elena, to you, I would like to ask, because feelings are mentioned on both sides, how do you feel a data-oriented approach can contribute to the mental health of employees and just ensuring that the culture in the corporate environment as well is better?
Okay, maybe not today, but tomorrow it can work, because I bought for my son, I think 1 month ago, Metaverse, and it's incredible. We play together all the time, again and again. And I wanted to have conversation in Metaverse. I want to go to the gallery in Metaverse, because it's a future. You can see everything. Yes, now they have a problem, with healthy. You cannot spend all time with these glasses, but every day, again and again. Many years ago, we don't have a fire. But now, I think it's our future. My son was born with technology, and he grew up with this. And no, it's not my future, sorry. I'm not so old, but unfortunately, it's their future. And they will be our employee. And we need to know about this, because all the time we wait a future, when it will be happened. But bad information. We live now in the future, We are Still here.
Does that mean we need to microchip our children at birth? So
and
that as you go forward, then you go forward, and then you'll be able as an employee then to just zap
So anyone listening, no children were harmed in the making of Julian's HR practices.
No. I'm going to the stage. She would say she's too old for that technology. Jesus, look at me. You know what I mean? Absolutely.
And I'm curious, how many people over here own an HR headset? I'm just curious. Could you raise your hand if that's the case? High five to you. I love it. And
Yes,
how
Julian.
many of you can imagine like working your day to day in a VR environment instead of going to work? Could you also raise your hand if you think that's a possibility?
Please, be
So many more
attention.
hands. Awesome. And Cordelia, I'd like to go back to you with another question. How do you feel a data-oriented approach, because I loved your answer earlier as well, how do you think it can benefit towards being more effective as decision makers and more effective from the perspective of time management as well, to potentially feed into ideas like 4-hour work weeks, for example, or self-actualization across the board?
Sure. So I think one of the key things for any HR team starting out is to decide which HR software do you want to go for. There are so many different options. Do you want to go for Bamboo? Do you want to go for Workable? Do you want to move to something kind of team tailored? There are many, many different options. But if you choose a system that is right for you, what you can really see is huge benefits. Not only are you able to track performance, so you can do the entire performance review cycle process through that tool. You can also then track sickness. You can also track engagement, happiness, satisfaction through weekly, monthly, quarterly employment surveys. And what you can start to build is you can start to see, is the workforce ready for big changes? Are they engaged? Are they happy? If they're happy, could you then look to do something like the 4-day working week? This is something that I'm extremely passionate about. I've done a lot of research. 92% of businesses in the UK that moved into this model, they've decided to keep the 4-day working week, and I really see the benefits of it. But as a business, you have to be ready to do it. And the challenge is that most businesses aren't bold enough to say we're going to trial it, because there's the risk that it fails. And if it fails, it looks like a company failure as opposed to maybe the workforce wasn't ready.
I love that. Julian, what do you think?
it. 4 days, huh?
4 days.
4 days. And pay them the same money?
Yes.
4 days.
He's struggling.
Look, let's be really open and honest. Hybrid working that came in because of COVID worked, without a doubt. All of our staff, we give them what. I'll rewind a second. What you have to do though is have a policy in place, as we were saying earlier, and that policy needs to show them not what they can and can't do, but needs to guide them into how it works for them. Wellness and health, well-being, etc., really needs to be on the top of it, because we noticed the fact that we have people that were working, and they were working 14 hours a day. Whereas if they were in the office, they'd be doing 8 hours a day. So you have to really keep an eye out, not just for the people that you're always going to have people that don't work. You're always going to have that. But they're not going to work if they're in the office. So whether they're not going to work at home makes absolutely no difference. They'll just be not working in pajamas. So there's no real thing there. When it comes down to what you were saying about the 4-day working week, absolutely. I might look an old dinosaur and things like that, but I'm very, very proactive, and staff really do make the company. And if you keep them happy and you can keep the actual well-being of them good as well, then you've got a win-win situation. Whether I'm going to go down to a 2-day working week, to be honest. That's me. Out on my yacht, that's it, done.
He may look like a dinosaur, but he's young at heart, and it's a pleasure having him here. And Elena, I'd like to jump back to you. One important point that Julian just mentioned is how we moved to hybrid work as a consequence of the pandemic. And I love how you were talking about the future before and analyzing where we are now and where we may be tomorrow. What do you think the best approach is? Should we be reactive or proactive with regards to building HR policies? So a really good point was made on the risks with regards to implementing a 4-day work week. What do you think? Should we be proactive with regards to testing out these new ideas? Should we have been testing out hybrid work before the pandemic? Or sometimes is it better to react to the disruptive process instead so that we don't try to over-engineer a solution that in truth isn't as effective? What do you think?
It's a very interesting question, but I think it depends on people. Unfortunately, it's all the time depend on people because every person, it's a person. And all the time we think about what people want or like myself, but first of all we need to ask, and after that we will discuss it again, because it's different companies, different situations, different culture, everything. First of all, we need to ask.
I would have to, unfortunately, disagree. I'm sorry. I think you absolutely have to be proactive when it comes to new initiatives and ideas, and I think that this is a key HR trend for 2023 and beyond. We're in a war on talent. If you're not willing to be out and proud with the benefits you offer, you'll end up losing the best talent possible.
And
I know, sorry, but I know a lot of...
One second, do you want to swap seats? So
Yeah.
So we got a little moderator in between you as well, yeah?
I know a lot of people who, think about only freedom. They don't need money. They don't want to live in the center of London or something else. They wanted to be, in Bali. They have cocktails and they wanted to work only for result, And for these people, it's not you can provide every benefits, money, everything, Maybe go to the church. I don't know, but unfortunately, no.
And I'm going to ask the audience over here because I'm so glad you're disagreeing. I hate it when we have a panel and we only agree. Therefore, we can't get any value.
I disagree with you completely.
That's why you're here to begin with. So that's the whole point. We need to disagree. That's how solutions are found through the art of compromise. So please, what do you think? If you need to be proactive, please raise your hand right now. Are you on the proactive side? I'm seeing one hand, 2 hands, 3 hands, 4 hands, 5, 6. So it's catching on fast. And how many of you think we need to be...
This is like the auction last night.
Yes!
Me.
And how many of you think we need to be reactive? Please raise your hand now. 1, 2, 3. Even though you're raising both your hands, it counts as 1, 4, 5. So it's kind of like a balance. And that goes to show, it's true finding compromise through that as well. And we're in the last 2 minutes, 40 seconds. So I'd like us to start moving towards closing this debate. Who am I going to start with? Cordelia, I'm going to start with you if you don't mind. Could you recommend a tool for SMEs, for example, or like startups that are starting off and probably don't have an HR tool in place? Because I know at CMC you're perfect for this. Could you potentially give a bit of value over there? Like what tool would you recommend and kind of closing that as well a bit?
Sure. So I've trialed many of the HR tools for a number of my different consultancy clients, and the best one that is probably the most cost effective for businesses under 100 people, but also works for businesses up to 500 would be Bamboo HR. You have the full suite. You have the ATS, you have performance management, you have time tracking if you want to use it, and you're also able to really deep dive into reporting when it comes to happiness, well-being, sickness, time out of the business, and also to customize it to make it effective for your business.
Thank you so much, Cordelia, everyone from CMC Consulting. And Elena, please tell us, what makes Lenkep different? Can you give that point of value over there for us? So what makes Lenkep recruitment different to your process? And just adding that point of value as well, what differentiates your process in that regard?
Repeat the question, please.
What differentiates Lenkep from the market? So what value you can bring to the table, both in the form of recruitment or even from just the HR processes that you have as well? With regards to what makes your environment different for individuals that either would, or companies that would want to work with you or be interested in your services or even wanting to work in your company?
In our agency, I work with another generation, first of all, and we need to know about this because I'm old in my agency. Sorry about this. But these ladies so clever who work with me, it's not only ladies. unfortunately all the time I think ladies, because you know HR usually it's ladies, you know, but we have boys and we have developers inside our agency. Yes, we're HR, but we can do it. We can do our work better and better all the time, and we open in other countries, everything. And I work with so open-minded people, and they, you know, wanted to save their happiness. And I work with PepsiCo, really, in PepsiCo. I work, and I want to forget about this.
I love that, and if Elena feels old in the company, I'd be surprised to see what you might feel like there, Julie. But to close, like beautifully, what makes Finductive different, and why should it be on people's radar, and even what makes it different working there as a consequence of your HR practices as well? So what value can we get from learning from your experience here?
So let's ignore the company. Yeah, let's forget about Finductive as a company or anything like that. What I would have changed when we started Finductive is I would have brought in a HR consultant or a HR person then. The time that I wasted at looking for employees, looking to create a culture, it's taken me 3.5 years to actually bring culture to a business. Because HR was, I know, I'm going to employ somebody, that's cool, that's fine. You know, what makes it different now is we've realized the mistakes. We've realized what we've done wrong. If I went through it all again, I would completely change it and go back to what I'm doing right now, getting the right people in, making sure that, you know, we put 13 people through the mental health first aid course. 13 people. We're gold members because you don't know what is going through the mind of the person that is sitting next to you. And these people now have the tools to be able to do it. And these little things are what you need to change within the business. Every time I hear a HR person saying something, it costs me money. Every single time. But sometimes it's done for the real good reasons, which is making sure that the employees that are running the business, not you, you're just a face of the business. They run the business. They do the day-to-day stuff. Just should have known that at the beginning.
Well, thank you. I have so much respect for that, and thank you, Julian. That was fantastic value for everyone, and thank you so much for listening to our panel. It was phenomenal to facilitate this discussion with these three awesome human beings. Can I please have a round of applause for them? Just because I think they brought some interesting points to the table.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
and have an amazing evening.
Thank you, guys.